Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin-Raymond.
Peace and blessings, love and light, and welcome to another edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin-Raymond. I'm a minister, spiritual life coach, author, and founder of RedeFinding You, LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. And that's just what we're going to talk about tonight, redefining you. We're going to be talking about my business, how I started redefining you, and also giving you a few tips on how to redefine you. So if this is your first time listening to the How Now podcast, go on over to www.hownowpodcast.com, find your favorite podcast platform, and then make sure that you sign up so that each time my show airs, you'll have an opportunity to hear it. Or you can click on the banner for this week's show, and it will take you to the YouTube channel for the How Now podcast, where you'll be able to watch the shows on demand. You'll be able to catch some of the episodes that you may have missed. Again, www.hownowpodcast.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share today. And leave a comment if you're enjoying the show and the content. Okay, so we are in the second season of the How Now podcast, and we're talking about wellness journeys and talking about aligning ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. And so, I want to talk a little bit about redefining you and how I got started on this path, because I'm in the middle of a wellness journey myself. And, it's important for us to know how to go about doing that, especially in this new space that we're in. Okay. And the one thing that I want us to always be mindful of is that our journey is not just about a physical journey, it's about a mental journey, and it's about a spiritual journey as well. And just like we require nourishment for our bodies, when we're hungry, we know that there are certain things that we should eat that are going to give us energy. And, we want that to be the same with regards to our spiritual walk and our mental capabilities as well. We want to be able to nourish and feed those aspects of ourselves as well, because all three of them go hand in hand. So we're always looking to see how we can align ourselves. So one thing that I ask in my workshops when I talk about redefining you is, if you were to put your life into your navigation system, where would it take you? Would you have a definitive place to go? Would you know what that destination is? Do you have a purpose and a goal set for your life? Or would you find yourself in a constant state of recalculating? Is it that you find yourself continuously going down streets that look familiar, but that don't necessarily lead to where you want to go? And that's something that's important for us to consider. What is our direction? What is our path? What is it that we're seeking to do? When we wake up in the morning, do we have a purpose and a goal set for what it is that we want to do for that day in this now? And that was a question that I had to ask myself many, many years ago, because for those who don't know my backstory and my history, I moved to Atlanta from New York when I was 26 years old back in 1996. You go on and do the math. And what I did was I moved here with my ex-husband my husband at the time, and my two young daughters. One was 3 and the other was 7. And we moved here to Atlanta shortly after the Olympics. I was 26 years old. I started working for the school system here in the Metro Atlanta area. And about 13 months after I moved here, I purchased my first home. And so I felt as though I was, quote unquote, living the American dream. I was married, had the house with the picket fence, had the two cats in the yard, and I was doing all the things that I thought a mom and a wife and a worker bee should do. And so I was going about my life, feeling as though I had accomplished something at a young age. I had moved, I had, developed my independence and was able to provide for my family. And things took a drastic change in 2009. In October of 2009, I was finishing up the final portion of my master's program at one of the local universities here. And I was taking some intensive weekend courses to finish up my coursework in May. And I was excited about that because I was going to be turning 40 that following year. And I was like, okay, I've met another milestone. I've finished my my MBA, and I'm excited about that, and was just going on about life. And I had come home that afternoon, and for my classes, and my youngest daughter was sleeping. My oldest daughter and my husband at the time were in their respective rooms watching TV or doing whatever it was they were doing. And my oldest daughter had complained of her throat bothering her, and I checked to make sure that she didn't have issues with her throat, or strep or anything like that. So I said, well, you know what, let's just change out everybody's toothbrushes and make sure that everybody's good. And so my husband at the time went to the store, got some toothbrushes, came back. I was preparing dinner, and when he came back, I said, well, you know what, I'm going to ask my youngest daughter what color toothbrush she wants, so we can go ahead and get that squared away, and then just go on about finishing up dinner. I had seen her the night before, because she was taking the braids out of her hair and was going to be getting her hair rebraided the following day, because they were off from school. And so I went upstairs to her room and knocked on the door. She had been up late, so it was not unusual for her to be sleeping. And so I went into her room, and she was laying on the floor, which was not uncommon because that's what she did. She liked to sleep on the floor. And so I went in and climbed up on her back and was like, wake up, wake up. And immediately I realized that she was not breathing. And so I proceeded to give her CPR, and she was gone. And my whole world changed at that very moment. And you never want to experience that as a parent. But I remember them coming. I remember, waiting almost a month before they were able to tell me what the cause of death was. And my 16-year-old baby had passed away of a brain aneurysm. And it was difficult, because now here it is. I've lost my daughter. Unfortunately, I was in the process of a divorce as well from my third husband. Yeah, I said third. My third husband, and my oldest daughter had just graduated from college herself and was moving to New York a couple of months later. So she was scheduled to move to New York in December of that same year. And so I went from being a mom and a wife and a worker bee, and having everything that I thought, life had to offer, to now having a daughter who had passed away, to having being an empty nester now because my oldest daughter was moving away and was moving out, and being divorced. So for the first time in my life, I was also living by myself. And it was like, okay, so I've been so defined by the roles that I played in everyone's life. Again, mom, wife, worker bee. And now it was like, I'm still going to be a mom, but my daughter's not going to be here where I'm actively engaging with her. My oldest daughter, my youngest daughter is no longer here on earth with me. And I'm no longer somebody's wife, somebody's boo, somebody's bae. And it was a difficult time for me because I didn't know how to function outside of those roles. So it was tough. It was a tough season. But the one thing that I never was angry at God for taking my baby from me. Okay, because I gave her back to him when he gave her to me. And that was something that helped in the healing process. And so, you know, I was the person that, all of my friends would come to and would say, "Hey, Kim, we have a friend who lost their daughter. What do we tell her?" And a lot of my friends said we didn't know who to turn to because you are our go-to person to ask questions like that to, because you always had an answer, and I just had to tell them, just continue to be my friend. Just continue to, listen to me and let me tell you what it is that I need when I determine or when I figure out what it was that I needed, because I didn't know at the time, So it was a season. It was a time for me to figure out who I was. Because at the end of the day, I had someone to ask me a simple question. They said, "Kim, now that, you're no longer married and your daughter has moved up to New York and you're living by yourself, what do you like to do? What are you going to do?" And I had never considered that question. And so I sat there for a long time trying to say, I have no idea what I like to do, because I've always done everything for everybody, because that, as a mom, that's what you do. You nurture, you support, you help. And in the process, sometimes what you do is you neglect yourself. And that's what I was doing. And it was a simple question: what do you like to do? And I couldn't answer that question. I remember going to Walmart to go and pick up some groceries. And I had walked around the store and picked up almost about $300 worth of groceries before I realized it was just me living at the house. So I stopped short of going to the cash register, and then I had to turn around and look at the cart and say, "Okay, so what do I like? What do I need to take out of here?" And I remember walking out of the store because I didn't even know what I liked to eat, because I ate what everybody else ate. And so, it was a turning point for me, because I had to figure out who Kim was outside of the roles that I played. And so that's how the whole aspect of redefining you started, because I said, it's finding myself again. Because all of us, when we were little, had goals and aspirations, things that we wanted to do when we grew up. I remember always wanted to be a teacher, always wanted to do that. And then I also wanted to be a banker, and I also wanted to be a ballerina. But those are the things that I wanted to do. And, I had dreams. And somewhere along the line, I lost sight of those dreams. I lost sight of those things that I wanted to do. Even though I was in school for education, and then I changed my major to business, and decided to get my MBA because, I had some pivots along the way. I still wasn't certain whether that was exactly what it was I wanted to do. And so here I was, 40 years old, trying to figure my life out, you know? And how was I going to find myself again? How was I going to find that little girl again who had dreams, And what were my new dreams? What was my purpose? I now had to determine what my purpose was in life. What is it that I'm supposed to do if I'm not, operating in these roles? What is it that I'm supposed to do? Where am I supposed to find my happiness and my joy? Yes, I still have my oldest daughter, and that was important to remember too, because even though I lost one daughter, I still had another daughter who lost her sister, and I had to be there to support her and to be what she needed me to be, and to continue to be her mom because she's still here. So those were things that were important for me to consider. So now I had to sit down and find myself again. I had to redefine who I was. And that's how redefining you came to being, because I said I can't be the only person who is getting to this point. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a tragedy, but what it was, having a pivotal moment, whether it be career wise, whether it be, empty nesting, whether it be divorce, anything like that. What is it that you do at that point? How do you go about rediscovering the things that bring you peace, the things that bring you joy, the things that make your life complete, that fill your cup? Because we get so caught up in filling everyone else's that we forget about ourselves. And of course, now we know, in this time of pandemic, where a lot of people have had an opportunity to sit down with themselves, then you hear all these buzzwords like self-care. Those weren't things that we were considering back then. All we knew to do was to work hard, get you a house, get you a car, do those things, and you'll have happiness. But you find out, or you soon discover, that that's not what brings you joy, and that there's an inner peace that takes place. There's a gratitude for the things that you have in life that takes place, especially when you lose something. You begin to stop and think, okay, what's important, And with this situation, I had to learn what was important. What are some things that were important to me? What are some things that I was willing to accept in life, and what things I weren't? I wasn't. And so that became a turning point. And so that's what I started to help my clients with, talking about redefining themselves, talking about what are some of the things that they need to do to move from a space of inspiration to transition to transformation, because those are the steps that I needed to go through. I needed to be inspired to do something outside of what it was that I was doing. Then I had to go about making those transitions so that I could be transformed into a person that could find her own peace and find her own way, and to be able to reach back and help others to do the same. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about doing that recalibration. I talked about earlier about what you would do if you would put your life in your navigation system. What is that you can do to recalibrate yourself, to readjust, to reset yourself, so that way you can be the best version of yourself? And so I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like, okay? Because the one thing that we want to do first is we want to make a personal assessment. We want to look and see what are the things that are going on in our life right now. One thing that I learned as I was going through this process is that I had a lot of toxic relationships. Things that, people in my life that were more of a crabs in the barrel, who were not there to support, but were there to drag me down. And that was something that I didn't want in my life. So I had to do that assessment. Who are the people in my inner circle? Who are the people who I trust? Who are the people who I know will be there when I need them, and are going to give me that inspiration that I need? And unfortunately, during my tragedy, I learned that there were some people who I thought were my friends, and they weren't. They weren't there at the times when I needed them. And I understand that people have their own independent lives and they have things that they're doing, but there were other ways that they could have supported me, that they always say, oh, girl, you don't have to worry. Anything happens to you, I got you. And they didn't have me. I remember one person, shout out to my girlfriend, Charlene. I will never forget when I went back to work and everyone was scared to come into my office because they didn't know what to say. She just walked into my office and she said, "Hey girl, you good?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good." But she made me feel like me again. When everyone else was too scared to say anything, they didn't even want to say hi. And sometimes you just need that. You need to get back into, you know, get back into living life. And some people in their fear of hurting my feelings wind up hurting my feelings more by making it seem as though I had the scarlet letter on my door and nobody could come and say anything. But I get it, you know. But it's taking a moment and analyzing the people that are in your life and what it is that they're saying to you. Are they saying things that encourage and inspire and uplift you? Or are they saying things like, "Yeah, girl, same thing happened to me. Yeah, girl, this is going on with me. Yeah, girl." Sometimes that's not what we need. We need encouragement. We need to be inspired. Or sometimes we just need to be left alone with our thoughts. But just for somebody to say, "Girl, if you need anything, I'm here. Just let me know how I can help you." And that empowers that person to be able to get past the point that they're at. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the people who are in our inner circle. Are they people that we trust? Are they people that we can confide in? And that's not everyone. We all have people who we are associated with, people who work at our jobs, and we go and we say hello to them, but we don't tell them our deepest, darkest secrets. You have a small circle of people that are in that inner circle who that you can trust. And it does not always have to be a member of your family. Sometimes you trust people outside of your family more than you trust your own blood relatives. It happens. I have girlfriends, we are called the Fab Five. There are five of us, we talk all the time. We've been friends for 30 plus years. Those are my sisters. That's my circle. They've been with me through death, through life, through marriage, through all kinds of things. They've been there. And they've shown themselves to be worthy of being in my inner circle. Not just because they were my sister or my cousin or anybody like that, but because they've earned a space in my inner circle. And I know that if there's anything that I need, I can call on one or all of them and they'll be there. So it's a matter of making sure that you have people in your inner circle. You know who those people are that you can trust and confide in. That's something that's important. We want to make sure that we have people around us that are going to support us and sustain us. Then we want to also look at some of the barriers. What are some of the things that are keeping us from determining what our purpose and our plan is for our lives? What is it that is a stumbling block? I think about when I was going to school, and I didn't say, "Well, I can't go to school because I have kids." My kids were my stepping stones. They were my inspiration for going back to school because I wanted to continue to create a better quality of life for them. And so, you start to look at, what are those things that are barriers? Is it my education? Is it my fear of failure? Is it my fear of success? And there is such a thing. Sometimes people don't think about that. We always think about, oh, well, people are scared or they're afraid to fail. It's not always about failing. Sometimes it's, what if I do it and it works? Can I continue to do that? Am I prepared for what that means? And that's something that we have to think about too. Because sometimes we've seen people who have businesses and they say, I make the best cookies in the world. And then they go to sell those cookies and those cookies are flying up the shelf like hotcakes, and they don't have, or they haven't put into place systems necessary to mass produce what it was that they thought was so wonderful. They didn't consider that if it was a success, do I have the resources or the capability to continue to do this? And so there are some people who have that fear of, if I do succeed, am I going to be able to handle that success? And we've seen in the past that some people are not prepared to handle the success that comes. Or we ask for money and we don't know what to do with the money once we get it. We've all seen people who are millionaires or people who have won the lottery and then they're broke a year later because they asked for something and then didn't know what to do with it when they got it. Does that sound familiar? For some, it may, you know? So it's a matter of figuring out, what are the stumbling blocks? What are the barriers? What are those things that are keeping me from doing what it is that I want to do? Is it comfort? Sometimes it's comfort. You get so comfortable in doing what it is that you're doing that the thought of doing something new and having to reestablish or restart something, it creates a fear. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because that's what's working for me right now. But does that mean that it's working for you always, or that there's not something better out there for you? Is it a lack of knowledge? And the one thing that is a blessing in this age of technology, there are so many things that if we don't know about them, or something that we're not familiar with, we've got the world open to us to be able to Google, to be able to YouTube, things that we never would have been able to do out of a card catalog if you, and that's me dating myself, in that card catalog, and being able to say, okay, we can live outside of our immediate environment if we have access to the technology to be able to inquire about those things that we don't know about. We don't have to rely on, Uncle Joey or Aunt Betty to tell us, about the things that they know, because they may be the only worldly person in our, in our circle. We have access to information and a means to make those inquiries and to say, okay, these are some things that I want to know about. Let me go and inquire about them. What are our resources? And if we don't have those resources, how can we go about getting them? We have to get to a space where we can start asking those kinds of pointed questions. What is it that's keeping me from moving forward? And how do I identify that? How do I look within and say, okay, let me look at the past and see what are some things that I haven't done and why haven't I done them? Okay, we hear that a lot now. Everybody says to establish what your why is. And if you don't know what your why is, then you have to ask yourself, why not? Why haven't I done this? Why haven't I been able to move beyond this space? And that's where you start to identify those barriers. Okay, so again, we talk about making sure that we know who our inner circle is, those people who can support and encourage us, who can uplift us, who can walk with us. And then we also want to determine, what our barriers are. What are those things that are holding us back, that are keeping us from doing the things that we're seeking to do? Okay, those two things are important. Okay, then we also want to look at, our ability to ask for help. Okay, there are so many of us out here that are independent. We want to be able to do things on our own. And when we limit ourselves like that, sometimes we can get in our own way. And we hear that a lot. Sometimes you have to get out of your own way in order to be successful, or in order to put ourselves in a space where we're open to doing something new. We have to get out of our own way. We have to not be our own stumbling block, to be our own barrier. We don't want that to be the case. We want to be able to say, okay, uh, I'm in this weird space. I'm in a weird space. I'm not in a place where I feel like I can move forward. I'm not in a space where I feel like uh, I can move beyond where I am. We have to get out of our own way. We have to make it a point to not self-sabotage, because that's an easy thing to do, to put ourselves in a space of self-sabotage. Okay? We want to stop and think, what are some things that are going to, that or some things that make me unique? The one thing that I want to stop and say is that, we all have a past. We all have things that have broken us down, situations that may have happened, some type of a physical or mental or spiritual abuse that we may have gone through. Okay. Or we may have had an easy life where we've never had to want for anything, and now we're in a place of struggle. And so that may be our the thing that is compromising for us. It doesn't always be that everyone has a past where it's abuse. It may be a past of ease, and we're just not used to having to fight for things that we want because we've always been given things that we've needed. So there are two extremes there. But no matter the pieces of our life and the experiences that we have, it is our faith, and it is our trust that binds those broken pieces together, because we are all, even with the broken pieces of our lives, are all a beautiful mosaic when those things are put back together with peace, with knowing our purpose. It begins to weave those broken pieces back together, and we become a beautiful mosaic. And if you've ever seen mosaics, if you've ever gone into any of these little thrift shops or anything else like that, and you've seen those broken pieces of glass, and then you see them put back together with cement, and they make these beautiful mosaics. There's no two pieces that look alike. And that's how it is in our lives. There are no two pieces that are alike. We are a mosaic unique to who we are. We all may have similar experiences, but we have different variables in those experiences that make that experience unique to us. Okay? So, in seeking to redefine yourself, you're not conforming to the norm, because you're asking, why? Why am I in this space? Why am I, choosing to live this? Why am I considering this to be the end all to be all? And then we turn around and we say, okay, now that I've identified that why, now I need to ask for help. And as I was saying just a few minutes ago, sometimes you don't want to ask for help, but sometimes we need it because we don't have the answers to everything. So we have to be in a space of being open to accept help if we need it. And now let's talk a little bit about how we do that. When we talk about looking for help or for seeking help, we want to make sure that we're going to the proper source for that help. Okay, if you're writing down notes, write that down. What is the source of your help? Are you asking a person who has knowledge about what it is that you have a question about? Sometimes we tend to ask our friends, or we tend to ask other people who are in our circle, but are they qualified to answer the question? That's something that's important. As a coach, I don't have all of the answers, but I have a coach, and my coach coaches me because I don't know the answers to everything. So it's important that you have people who are qualified to answer the questions that you may have. You want to have people who can give you the answers or give you the knowledge that you need so that you can make informed decisions. You don't want to just ask anybody. The world is full of public opinion, but that doesn't mean it's always the best opinion. Okay? And it doesn't mean that it's the only opinion. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a term called a second opinion. Because sometimes you may have to get a second opinion. But you want to make sure that the person that you are asking is someone who is qualified to answer the questions. You want to make sure that when you go to that person, that they are available, and we can't be upset when they're not. Okay. Sometimes we ask for help, or you may ask a person and the person may be busy, and then you get upset with them because, oh, well, they couldn't help me. They didn't want to help me. Were they able to help you? Were they in a position to help you? So these are questions that you have to ask yourself as well when you're talking about asking for help. Is that person qualified? Do they have the time to be able to help you? And if they don't, do you have a second person? Sometimes your plan A doesn't work out. Do you have a plan B? Do you have a second person or a third person? And that works two ways, because sometimes, of course, as a woman, as a nurturer, you want to always say yes. You want to say yes to everything. And sometimes you can't because you've got things on your plate. And so just like sometimes we need to learn to say no, sometimes we need to be able to accept that no and say, if this person is not available, do I have another resource? Think about when you go to the store and you say you're looking for a pair of tennis shoes and they don't have it at the store. Do you just stop because that's are they the only store that sells those tennis shoes? Or do you go out and check a number of places? Oh, if they don't have it here, then I'm going to check over here. And if they don't have it here, I'm going to go over here. If it's something that you really want, you always make sure that you have more than one way to get it. Oh, I need to be able to pay for this and I don't have it, so I'm going to ask Joe first. And then if Joe doesn't have it, then I'm going to ask this one or that one. For those things that we want, we always seem to find that resource, or we're always able to try to find what it is that we need when we really want something. And we have to think about that, about the aspects of our life, and not be so quick to give up when the thing that, the person or the resource that we're looking for doesn't pan out. Is there another one? So we want to take those things into consideration when we're looking for help. Is that resource a reliable resource? And if that resource isn't available, what are some other options that I have? Okay, so we want to take that into consideration as well. Okay, then lastly, what I want to talk about, because like I said, this is something that is a process. One last thing that I want to talk about is, self-care. What are you doing for yourself? What are some things that you are doing to take care of you, to replenish and to energize yourself? We've been hearing a lot about that. One thing that I talk about at the end of each one of these shows is I ask people how they're living in the now. What are you doing to navigate in this new space that we're in? One of my favorite things to do is I love meditation. I love reading. I love doing my Bible study, because those are things that nourish me, mind, body, and spirit. I love to exercise. I love dancing to good music. I love listening to good music. I like to listen to my R&B and my jazz, and every now and then I like to listen to classical music. But then I also like to listen to the tone drums, and I like to listen to frequencies. Those are things that were new to me that I was introduced to, and that I find soothing and relaxing at the end of the day. That's how I go about, cooling down my day. I write in my gratitude journal 3 things that I'm grateful for at the end of every day. These are things that are reminders to me of 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 what's important. What is important to me? What are the things that are going on, you know, in my life that I'm grateful for? Okay. On the flip side of that, I also am a person who likes checklists because I want to make sure that I accomplish the things that I set to accomplish each day. Okay, and even if it's just one thing, because I don't try to set the expectations so high that I can't attain them. Okay, sometimes we have to, we always say you have to crawl before you walk. What am I doing? What is something that I'm doing, you know, right now that's going to, help me to get one thing off of my plate? That's something that is important for us to remember. We have to do things that are going to replenish us, that are going to give us hope, that is going to, allow us to feel successful. And if we try to do too many things at one time, we're never going to feel that sense of being successful or that we've done anything. Think about people who are, we'll give an example in each one of the areas of our life. Okay. If we're talking about the physical, if you decide that you want to go on a diet and you restrict yourself and say, well, I can't eat this and I can't eat this, I can't have this, and I can't have that. How about what you can have? Okay. Sometimes that's what we tend to do. We sit there and we talk about how many, well, I can't have this, and, I can't eat this. So, and they say, I can't have bread and I can't have sugar and I can't have it. Can we just start with having 8 glasses of water or a glass of water if we're not drinking any water? What are we doing to help ourselves to be successful? Because we can say, you know what, I had 1 glass of water today, yay me, and celebrate that, the small wins. Okay, yeah, I can't have all these things, but guess what? I can have this and I can have that. Or I can have this meat. I may not be able to have as much of it, but I can still have it. I can have a couple of chips as opposed to the whole bag of chips. How about that? We have to start looking at things from a different perspective. Okay. When we talk about spiritual things, you may have somebody who says, well, I'm gonna have to memorize the whole Bible. Really? Or I have to read the whole Bible in a year. How about just reading one verse? How about looking at something that may be going on in your life and finding a scripture verse that addresses that? Go into Google and just type in there, verses talking about being angry. Those verses will come up, and maybe you just read those verses. Maybe you just read one. Maybe you seek to memorize just that one verse so that when you get angry, you may go back to a scripture and say, be slow to anger. And that may be the thing that reminds you to calm down. But it was that one thing. Okay? Think about when you're talking about your mind. Think about self-regulation. Okay, and that's where, okay, somebody has pressed your button and you're angry, and you may just have to say, okay, let me go over here and sit down for a minute. Let me count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Count to 10. Take 5 deep breaths, and start practices that can be something that you can incorporate into your life, and it's something that you can do continuously, or that you can do for a long period of time, not something that you can only do for a few minutes and then forget. You want to start setting small goals like that. And then as you master those things, start looking into adding on to those things. Okay, I memorized one scripture verse. Now I'm going to memorize two. Okay, I've taken 5 deep breaths and that's helped me to self-regulate when I get upset. Now let me see if maybe I can do something like that when it's time for me to relax at the end of the day. You know, I was able to drink those 2 glasses of water. Okay, by the end of this week, I'm going to try for 5 glasses of water. But you understand that there is a process behind the things that we're doing, and that you're doing those for your own edification, that you're doing them so that you're uplifting yourself. And that's something that's important. Because one thing that I say is that, you know, and we've heard it, it's very cliche, you know, you cannot pour from an empty cup. But if you have a cup that overflows, now not only are you pouring from, you're not pouring from an empty cup anymore, you're pouring into someone else, but you're leaving some for yourself. So that way you can both toast to your successes. And you're not just looking at that person with animosity because you've given them everything and you've left nothing for yourself. Make sure that your cup is at a space of overflow so that you can pour into others, but still have some left for yourself. And then you can both celebrate. That's the joy. That's the success. But it is all a process. None of these things of getting to a space where you're removing toxic people from your relationship, determining what may be some of the barriers that are going on and some of the stumbling blocks, asking why those stumbling blocks are there, being able to take care of yourself, to have that self-care take place, looking into all of those things and figuring out how, and being able to ask for help. Let me not forget that one. Being able to ask for help and figuring out what those resources look like. All of these things don't happen overnight. And none of these things are the magic solution for everything. But they're a means to an end if we're consistent, if we're willing to take those small steps to move from that space of, again, being inspired to transitioning so that we can transform. And we transform by the renewing of our minds. Okay? Look up that verse. See if you find that one in the Bible. Okay? But we want to get to a space where we're at least putting one foot in front of the other. When we see that something isn't working, when we see that our internal navigation system isn't working, what are we doing to recalibrate that? What are we doing to change the trajectory of our lives? And that's something that we have to be mindful of constantly if we're seeking to find the better version of ourselves. Okay? So I'll leave you with that because I don't want us to get to a space of overwhelm. But those are just some things to consider. And those are some of the things that we address and take deeper dives in through my Redefining You business. So if you want to know a little bit more about redefining you and that process, I would love for you to go to my website, www.redefindingyou.com. It'll also take you to a tab for this How Now podcast as well. So that's Redefining You, RedeFindingYou, www.redefindingyou.com. And again, you'll see a tab there for the How Now podcast, and you'll be able to like, follow, and share on this show. Okay, so I hope that the information that I have shared with you this evening has at least put a little seed in your body that's going to grow, that's going to help you to grow, that's going to at least get you a little curious about some things that you can do, especially if you're feeling stagnant in where you are in this point in your life, or if you're getting to a space where you'll be empty nesting soon, or you have changes in your relationships and you're seeking to figure out what your next steps are. There are options. There are things that you can begin to do to, create that alignment of your mind, body, and spirit. And know that it's not just one thing, it's those three components combined that are going to help you to get to where you need to be. Again, go to my website, www.redefindingyou. Make sure that you, click, leave me an email, leave me, a message, and let me know how I can assist you in redefining you. Okay. And so that'll do it for this edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. Please make sure that you reach out to me. Make sure that you like, follow, and share. And, make sure that you're taking care of you. Make sure that you're seeking to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And there are those out there of us who are willing to help you, who are willing to support you, who are willing to encourage you to transition so that you can be transformed. And until I see you the next time, I say peace.